Hi, you're listening to Mindset Podcast that is spelled with AI, a weekly tech podcast that is shaping what you know and think about AI. My name is David, I'm a tech journalist, and here with me is Philip, an AI executive. Philip, we're back with our podcast. And
good to see you again.
Likewise, and today's topic is AI agents.
Yes.
So let's dive right in. Why is it such a big topic, and why is it being discussed so much? You hear, there was the Dealbook Summit conference, and I think Jeff Bezos, Sundar Pichai, Sam Altman, they all mentioned AI and AI agents as well. You hear it from other tech executives. It's kind of a dream almost that everyone is dreaming about. And I would say like different people such as me and others have very different understanding of what it should be and where should we get. So why is it such a big topic, and how did we get here?
Yes, it's interesting because I do agree that the AI agents topic is anywhere between like it's a human savior, like this is what is going to save the humanity, all the way down to, well, it's just the next step in AI, right? And I mean, the listener can decide at the end of this episode where she or he stands on this. But why would we get here, and why is it important? Well, so I think when AI is being developed, everybody dream of AI to be useful because we had a lot of AI winters before, right? We have several waves of AI being tried to be adopted and like become a mainstream. And every time they were failing on the point of, hey, but it's not useful enough, right? So I think the AI community learned the hard way that this is probably not the way to go. And therefore, they try to position this wave of the AI, finally, it's going to be the one which is useful. This is why we are in this corner. Now, are we really in that corner, or is it just a kind of marketing bluff to make it happen? That is something which we need to debate in a detail today. But if I take, honestly, if I really believe in what they want to make here, so then AI agents would be a tool where you would simply have something like your colleague for specific task. So let's say a role or a complete person who is doing a certain type of a job, sometimes maybe combined in larger packages, but I think most of the people think about it as a dedicated tasks, doing it instead of you. So doing it as a kind of a helper or your kind of sidekick colleague who is kind of making the things happen. This is what this original promise of the AI agents.
Okay, so you're hinting at a couple of things there. So just to do this distinguishing between AI agents. So
Yep.
So there are per task.
Yes.
So the way we're thinking about it today is there's an AI agent which would be, ideal for project management, or AI agent would be like a creative head or stuff like that. When I think about AI agent, I more like think about an AI assistant who is kind of a middleman between several tasks. And I don't want to think about, go to that, go to that AI agent which is doing that stuff, go to that one who is which is doing something else. And so for in my head is like, okay, you talk about AI agents, in my head is, so in your understanding that is like several AI agents. In my understanding, I want just an AI assistant do everything and just like decide if you need to use another AI agent to do specific, like don't bother me, just do it, right?
Yes.
Is it like a very dreamlike scenario in this day and age?
Yeah, I think, and originally also when ChatGPT was launched, a lot of people thought about it that ChatGPT will be like a single purpose thing, and you can do whatever you wish with that, right? To be honest with you, I think we are beyond that point. So I have a kind of a bad news for that AI assistant wish for you in this regard. But it's not like end of a hope, right? So just like, let's get it right. So when ChatGPT started and opened a new way for AI tools to be popularized and mass applied, people were trying to do different things with it, and then the creators of the AI models realized it's super difficult to make a single model omnipotent, doing everything in a single bat. So what it did very quickly, they created something like a chain of experts, or let's say a multiple smaller models, which you don't see if you use ChatGPT because they are hidden behind the wall. But in reality, if you had a chance to peek over the wall, what you would see a lot of smaller models doing particular things. And then there is one kind of dispatcher who distributes the tasks and collects the partial inputs and combines it. So in that sense, I think you are fair to expect that you're going to have an AI assistant which is going to do dispatching. But in reality, the backend of it, well, there will be still an individual agents doing the tasks. And I think that there are a lot of people who are willing to use the things for the task first. So besides people like you who want to have the assistant and doing the dispatching thing, I think a lot of people will be just fine. Okay, just give me a translator. And I'm going to use it on specific use cases. Just give me a web page designer. And the web page designer does not have to talk with me about my mental issues, or doesn't have to be a therapist, doesn't have to be educator for my kids, right? But just give me this. So if you think about it, the way it's going to go, there's going to be some people who want to have a specialist, and quite a few people who want to have a generalist, but the generalist needs to have the specialist. So as a result, I think the real development of the AI agents will be more on the specific roles first, until you can get the dispatcher to talk to them.
Okay, let me put it another way. Is my way of thinking about AI agent or this AI assistant closer to the idea of artificial general intelligence?
Yes, I think so.
So I'm already trying to expect something that is very far away, probably.
As is usually the norm for you. I know you for long, so this is nothing that surprised me by you.
Okay. So let's get back to AI agents. So why is it AI, LLMs, ChatGPT have been around for more than 2 years now, and AI agents were a hot topic just in 2024, or started to be a hot topic in late 2024?
It's the capability gap. Like, I think this moment of eruption of AI in 2022 was like all of a sudden people wanted to have an all-purpose tool, but the tools itself were not all-purpose, right? And AI community realized it really quickly because they saw like what kind of queries are coming, and that the results that are getting are kind of either okay or even below the expectations. So they quickly realized, but it's not realistic, because if this, I don't know, several tens of billions parameters model can do that well, how big of a model it would have to be to do so many other things even better, right? So they realized it's not technically feasible to train a single model being so large and doing so well and so nuanced also on many of the topics. Because if you think about it, expert in certain area is not the ones who know like generally what the topic is about. The expert in the area is who have a very nuanced, detailed understanding and can distinguish between, okay, usually red is the color, but now it's the orange which needs to be used for this particular thing, right? So I think it's just a capability gap. They were not ready to offer it in 2022 when the AI explosion began. And now they're getting there. So it took time to develop dedicated models for specific areas.
Okay, but here's my problem. Okay,
come on.
So my problem is everyone started talking about AI agents.
Yep.
You already see companies like Microsoft already coming to market with products that you can pay for that are called agents. And you can create these agents. You can share these agents across your company, across your team. And it sounds well and nice. But whenever I talk to anyone who's using, who's a Copilot subscriber and has this, option for the team to use it, actually the capabilities within that AI realm of software uh, is still very limited because it doesn't cross some kind of gap when it comes to, okay, I need to do, in order to do a task, I need to do A, B, and C, and it kind of fails to do one of those steps.
Yep.
So it kind of comes back to the notion that it's still not ready, and yet it is being sold as if it was ready, and I don't understand it.
Yes, I see your confusion, and to be honest, like this is an issue that even AI practitioner like myself and the teams I lead have issue with. So I can't blame you for being kind of flabbergasted by that. But just maybe a bit of an explanation there. So in this AI agent area, we have several chicken and egg problems. And we're going to uncover a few of them today. But one of the very obvious ones is that let's remind ourselves, how did the explosion of the AI begin? So OpenAI came with a model, then quickly some others followed, which is free to use and paid, but the paid does not give you any specific things which are better. You get a slightly better model, so maybe slightly ahead in development curve, but not like 3 times or 10 times better, just maybe 20 or 25% better. And it's not specialized, it's still generic. So you would have these professionals who would like to have an expert on a particular area, but there is no market to buy a professional AI, I don't know, video cutter or like a video editor, right? Not yet. It will be soon. That is my expectation that it will be soon, but it's not there. So you don't have anywhere a chance to buy a particular role, but the companies expected to develop the professional in that role. And as the roles are so many, they are facing this dilemma. So, okay, I would have a demand for 30 different roles, but I don't have a budget to develop 30 different specialist models to make it happen. So what I do, I try to build few of them, which I think are kind of useful or are useful for multiple things. And I package it, it's already there, just because I need to collect some money out of it, right? So this is the chicken and egg problem we have here. So there would be a way to develop a specialist, but there is no market for it because people were spoiled with having a free general purpose tool rather than having a paid specific tool.
Okay, but I'm not talking now about B2C. I'm more looking at B2B, right? Like this is an area where I'm not saying money is not an issue, but it's not such an issue when it comes to, customer, mass audience related software. So like with B2B, if you deliver on the promise, it's kind of like you're willing to pay as a business. And I'm kind of failing to see whether this is a failure of understanding what the capability should be, or whether it is the failure of delivering on the promise. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
So which one? Or both?
Let me say that I had too many times word failure in your last few sentences, so that's not a good sign for AI first place, because it sounds like a failure. No, jokes aside. Look, I think it is mostly overpromise and underdeliver. But as I said, I think it's a bit of a defense mechanism of the AI community that we had already several waves of AI being kind of progressed or asked budget for like development of it for sake. Now we are in an era where somebody wants to put money in, he or she wants to see some results. So I think the AI companies summon this on themselves, these extra expectations. And to be honest with you, like it's a little bit of like the AI development teams are like half convicted of the problem as well. So they're half guilty as well. Because I see it on our development team as well. I'm going to give you an example. So we were designing a tool where we thought, okay, it was an image generation tool. And so you're going to give us some inputs and we're going to generate the image for you, right? But then somebody came like, wait, it's an AI tool. Why should like user tell us a prompt? We can read it out of the photos, what he or she wants, like how does he or she looks like and so on. And then we went down that pathway and that was the mistake. This is where we were ahead of our skis where we overstretched the thing. We got to the point that we couldn't deliver on that. And it was stupid because like, okay, it's not so much of a downgrade of the experience to ask user for 3 or 4 preferences. They will gladly do it because it takes probably 10 seconds. But this mindset of a people developing this like, hey, I need to develop an AI product, so it should be as smart, it shouldn't ask you anything, it should like infer it itself, is what is making it difficult. And I do see the same thing in agents. They start with an expectation it should be doing everything. Like you give it a very stupid small prompt and it should do all the magic. And it's not the way that it works. It's super complicated. And very often we don't realize how specific our prompts are when we talk to our regular employees and colleagues. But we expect the AI to be even smarter.
Let me give you another example of failure. So I'm a huge fan of voice assistants, right?
Okay.
So ever since Alexa has been around, I've been a fan. I had an Alexa. I've been like super curious with it. If I see my children interact with it, it's kind of like it gives me like this a little bit of hope that we're going in a good direction. Like voice is a really good interface for communication. So we again 2024, the year of the pro voice assistants, the advanced voice models that have come around. Either that's ChatGPT, Gemini, even Llama's voice assistant, or more or less that's Meta AI, I would say. And so you have a conversation with these voice assistants, and the conversation kind of can range from inspirational to conversational to being kind of like even enlightening. So the conversation can be good. Obviously, I would still keep it in English. I tried Slovak. It like I could still hear a very robotic voice. So that kind of breaks the experience. So the advanced model has to be on a level that you don't think about talking to a robot, at least for me. Even though I have seen research where all the folks, where they hear an advanced robot voice, they kind of think, oh, this is like super advanced, and I like talking to it.
A Star Trek moment.
Yes. But so I have the conversation with the voice assistant. And at the end of the conversation, I want a simple task.
So what is it?
And the simple task is send me notes from this conversation to my email.
I see.
Unable to do. Okay. Do a summary of this conversation and send it to me in the chat. No can do. Send me a transcript of this conversation, which is like I cannot go like any more basic, right? Because in the end, the conversation we have is basically text based, right? It's like I say something, the speech gets translated into text, it gets feeded into the large language model, it comes back as text, and then generates a voice pattern.
Yes.
So the whole conversation is basically text based.
Yes.
And so I just want something that is already there, and this keeps breaking the experience of it being useful for me. Although I have to say I know of people, and probably there is like a few of them who, or like some percent of the overall users of AI tools who are just happy with having this conversation and not tying in something that comes after, like email, notes, summary, tasks, to do, whatever.
So the failure is it's too simplistic?
So the failure is it is self-contained. And there is and I want to plug in other things to come out of that conversation. And for like in my mind, and I'm no expert in like looking behind the wall. That's why we have you here. The connection between let's take this conversation or whatever part of that conversation or just a summary transcription which already exists in the text base to just like give me several options or at least one to work with it.
Yep.
And it's just not there.
So let me take you on a walk. So from what you've been kind of alluding to, it sounds to me that you would appreciate to have a tool which is probably heavy on interaction with you and can be lighter on the actual skills. So you would tolerate as simple as transcript. That's what you said,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
If it only gave it to you, and if it only gave it to you on a prompt that you give it kind of from your voice direct command. So that's interesting. But the bad news is this is not, unfortunately, the way that the product people in AI think about it. And shame on us, because I think we probably might think about it the way that you do. But you need to understand that the AI is still in a stage where you imagine you're a developer, you're doing a model. So how do you feel that you did a better job this time than the last time?
In what sense?
Like you developed a model.
Yeah.
Then you are to do a next model next month. How do you know that the next model is better?
I gave it probably better training data. It got better. I did give some like user feedback. I tweaked some stuff that didn't work before. That's at least how I imagine it.
Yes, and this is exactly the problem of why you use the word failure so many times.
Okay.
So AI agents are developed as an incremental improvement of the models. So you take feedback, you take benchmarks, and wherever it failed the benchmark, what the team does, next time make sure it's better on the benchmark. This is the way how the quality of it is measured. There is no quality criteria for how good of a companion or a friend it is, or how good of an assistant it is per se. And that's the problem. So it's the old managerial thing. What you measure is what you get, right? What you kind of compensate for is what you get. So the AI development models are not hooked on the KPIs, which would be pleasing David and a similar users. The AI development models are hooked on meeting the benchmarks of making certain tasks. And I think that the year 2025 is going to change it a little bit. But quite honestly, and this is a topic which we debated several times together, so I know where you stand on that point, I believe that the way out of this is the integration to the operating systems. So before the agents will be sitting in the operating systems and integrated in that, like in iOS, Android, or whatever we're going to think about it, Windows, this will not happen because it will be never a core business of an AI development team to make the user experience at least matching or like integrated. It's always, hey, we developed a tool, a component, and docking of that tool in your experience means making it useful in the environment which you do. And this is where the disconnect is.
But wouldn't you want to be platform agnostic?
Yes and no. And that's an interesting question. I'm glad you're bringing it up because as a developer, you want to make sure that you're not limited by any platform. But as a result, if you do that, then you're not catering to any platform either. So what it means is I'm being so platform agnostic that I'm not being platform integrated, you know? So the model needs to work wherever, but when it works wherever, it's not pleasing any specific user environment because it cannot be tuned to the way that you are used to using it. And that's the kind of chicken and egg problem, which I said several of them are here. And one of them is like, hey, it would be so much better if you got integrated, but do you dare to bet your future on you agree with Tim Cook to be in iOS and they let you stay there? Do you agree with Google to kind of integrate into Android? Do you agree with Microsoft to integrate into the Windows? It's a bet which is difficult for many companies to justify. And also investors who are putting money into the AI companies, they don't usually like situations where you are hooked on certain platform. Like you remember probably Zynga games and kind of a meta situation, right? So that's why it is.
Okay, so you're still saying to have a powerful AI agent, which is actually practical
Yep.
and does a lot of things for you, you still are dependent on the biggest technology gatekeepers.
Yes, it's probably a bit of a strong statement, but if you put a gun against my head and ask me like what is the most critical thing to make sure that the AI agents work, this would be really high on my list. It's not the only thing there, to be honest, and we can get to the other points, but it is pretty high on that list as a kind of a necessary condition to be met in order to make this happen.
Okay, so let's just stay here for just a while. And so you have, let's say, the promise of Apple, okay?
Yep.
Which we both, I think, have the same kind of notion of being a little bit, and these are really strong air quotes behind the biggest AI players in the field, especially with those who are valued at the sums that these companies are valued, and have the vast resources these companies have. So the idea for Apple is to have it deeply integrated, to have one, as I said, one assistant, which would be Siri. And if you want your app, software, whatever, being used by, billions of people, you need to give kind of an API access to Siri, which would then promote your app or the capabilities your app. So this is super nice for the end user, right? Like I have one assistant. My dream. It's really my dream. Just like if the whole phone was just like I pick up the phone and there's just a circle, which is Siri or whichever assistant. Probably Siri does not have the best connotation when it comes to quality. So let's maybe I will mention it less. But let's say the phone is just the assistant. Okay, so that's the primary interface for me.
Okay.
I would be totally okay with it if in the back end you would have all the apps that I need be connected to it and go through this assistant, which would do the things that I would otherwise do manually, right? Like select the most important emails for me. Just reply yes, no emails, right? Like just give me a list of emails which are yes or no. Give me a list of emails that kind of need my input. Okay, so that's well. Give me a list of emails that are some future tasks, right? And you can kind of categorize, and that's just email, right? Like I could just have this whole episode on just like how an AI assistant could have better email assistance overall.
Yep.
And so this is so Apple's promise is okay, so we will have this assistant that will be deeply integrated. So it will be no kind of like, oh, let's do OCR on the screen and see where the button is to push the button. But there is this, deeper integration, and we are like, there's like almost like there will be like way less room for error than in this case that we're living now. So this is Apple's idea.
Yep.
So very good for the user, very good for those devices, very good for Apple probably. But on the other hand, what's as a developer, like how am I getting paid if everything is happening on the layer of in the background? There is no like app name recognition, probably a subscription, I would guess, or some kind of like I subscribe to this one assistant that based on the usage distributes the credits or the money that is being that I'm paying for the advanced version of the assistant. Who knows?
Yep.
So this is Apple's kind of like promise idea where it wants to go. Like where does it fit into a deeper or like a wider landscape, and is it actually doable?
Now, let me throw a grenade into it.
Okay.
And sorry for doing so, but so let's take it piece by piece. So I told you that in this area there's several chicken and egg problems, and this is yet another one. So just very briefly, okay, you are Apple, who owns the ecosystem. Ultimately, you decide for what user pays for or not, right? Because it's your ecosystem. But you have these underlying, let's say, components who are doing the actual job. And if Apple was only able to develop them themselves, it would work. But we both know that never happened and probably will not happen in any kind of, they missed the train. They probably could if they wanted them, but they missed the train. So now they are in a situation that they need to source a third-party components into it, right? Now, as you rightly said, you're being a third-party component developer. What's your interest of being in it? And you would hope for some kind of a Spotify model where you kind of provide a content and every time it is being used, you get something back. Fine. But the problem is that this is not the way that the AI development started first place. It started as, I'm going to develop a tool which is general. OpenAI didn't say, I'm going to give you an email handler, I'm going to give you a transcriber, I'm going to give you... They said, I'm going to give you a general usage tool and you go figure out how you find it out. So they don't even decompose the things themselves. There are individual models behind the scenes. So they could offer a component A to Apple, component C to Apple, but then they will be not willing to price it that way, right? And to be honest also, like if you think about for such a kind of assistant, how many different tasks you would have to go, if you have to buy each component from a third party, you will have to charge it back to the user. It will get super expensive. So long story short, I can build an email helper or email assistant for you, which is doing all the dreams you have. Would cost you about $150 a month. Would you be interested?
I would probably pay it.
You would?
I would probably pay the money.
Well, then you need to have many more people than you are to make this happen, because there's very few people who would be interested. Because even Microsoft is struggling themselves with, now they introduce the AI tools into the Office 365 and they expect to charge more for it. They get a lot of pushback on it, a lot of pushback. They can't get it through. And they are asking maybe plus $20, plus $30, not plus $150, right? So that's this chicken egg problem. We don't have a scale enough for the developers to be fine with just having it as a third-party component. And the owners of the platform who can give you the middleman don't have the components themselves. So that's a kind of a situation where we're locked in, and therefore you hear a lot of failure in the comments of the users because like there's no way to please it in a recent setup. So this is also maybe kind of segueing too fast into kind of conclusions about it. But to be honest, I think this misery that we are here in is probably to stay for few more quarters.
Oh, quarters. I was afraid you will say years.
No, I think it's quarters.
Yes, is okay. So just to repeat, money is an issue.
Yes.
Because it is, but it will get cheaper, right? So money is just a temporary issue.
Yes, money is temporary issue. There are more permanent issues.
Okay, more like permanent. Okay, but is it so? Okay, what? And you said too many ideas. So money, one issue that can go away as we see models get more effective, and so on.
Yep.
The second issue is this notion of me being a third party content developer.
Yep.
That's like not great. But I mean, if I'm getting paid, I should be okay with it, right?
But there's no platform to do it. Like there's no app store for AI apps in Siri.
No, but if we take the Spotify model, which you...
yes, but it doesn't exist either.
Not yet, but it's kind of might have or might be cooking in the background. I think the same way we got to this notion, smarter people than us in much well-paid positions than us in Silicon Valley are probably thinking the same, especially the two gatekeepers of
Oh,
the
come on.
mobile platforms.
I thought that the tech journalists are really well paid.
Yeah, absolutely. So there might be like a future marketplace developing for this, especially from the
Yes.
point of view of these gatekeepers. Android, iOS, or Google,
Okay.
Apple.
Maybe let me seal the gap, because if you remember when you asked me about what is the main problem, I told you it's one of the key problems, this platform, but it's not the problem. So let me just finish the list, and maybe then you see the picture in a whole kind of light. Besides the fact that you have this platform problem, which we debated for last few minutes, there is one more other issue. And I think a best way to understand is literally to always go back to think about it as a colleague, right? Like this analogy of you would have an assistant, like a human assistant who would go through emails. It's very useful to understand what the other problems are. So now let me compare. So you have a male, female assistant, doesn't really matter, a human assistant who is doing the things for you. Now, if they do mistake, whom is to blame?
Them,
right? Okay. If they are not performing, who should act on it?
me.
Okay, and what you gonna do?
Like what you normally do, right? Like you give a few notes or critiques.
Yep. You try to improve first.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, you change.
Yes.
Well, and that's where the problem starts. So let's look in the AI assistant. If it does the mistakes, whom's to blame?
I mean, the assistant, right?
The developer of the model, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so if it keeps on doing mistake, what do?
I stop using it, obviously.
You stop using it, obviously, right? And the problem here is that as much as if the person is not good enough, it's your fault because you recruited it and you need to change it.
Yeah.
In the AI assistant, it's their fault and they have to fix it. And I'm not even talking about going all the way to the liability, like if it caused some damage, right? Like if your employee caused some damage, maybe you can charge a little bit into it, but like your top manager is going to still ask you, how could you possibly hire a person doing such a big, and it's your kind of managerial mistake as well, right? So this is the problem here. So it comes to liability as an issue. It comes to kind of you are not that easy to exchange it because now it is integrating into the operating system. There's only one transcriber for a Siri. So you don't like it. What do? Like you can't stop using it, right? Because you're kind of charged to stay in the same situation. So this lock-on particular tool, absence of the kind of integration tools, and a liability issue this combo is very difficult to overcome. And this is why we are probably not going to see a very good AI assistant soon. Sorry.
I'm sad.
I do see. How can I make you more happy? What can I do for you?
No, let's maybe look. If the present is sad, let's maybe look into the future. And in the future, I see two possibilities, which we already outlined. So one is this. Okay, so let's say we get to this general assistant, right? Like one day.
Okay.
Hopefully sooner than later, for me and for everyone.
How much you willing to wait for? How many? Time units. I'm not going to say even a time unit. How many time units are you willing to wait?
Like yesterday was too late.
Okay. Well, okay. Sorry, come again with your points.
So, how I said, like you have, like I would be okay with just having an assistant as an interface. So if you kind of like translate it bigger, and skip several steps, you get to ambient computing, right? Like, everything all around is just serving us. So I don't need anything because everything, like suddenly the thing in my pocket becomes the thing that is all around me and it's connected. You see where I'm going?
I'm afraid. I'm afraid to see where you're going because that makes the things even harder.
So we're talking about several steps ahead, which is like changing the whole infrastructure of the whole world. So not even like smart cities or smart buildings, but basically living inside a huge machine where you're being served by everything all around you. So that's like one of the, I would say, endpoints for me. At least I never got away from my thinking. And in meantime, because that's like a very futuristic idea, the thing when it comes to AI agents is robotics, right? Like that's the middle, like the middle stone to that, right? Like in order to build this huge thing, it's probably not going to be us, but it's going to be machines that build this world for us in the meantime. And so how do AI agents feed into the idea of robotics?
All right. So you said 2 points, so let me answer them one by one. So let's save the robotics until the final. So the promise of a useful AI agent, first place, and maybe AGI kind of agent is interesting. But if I'm not mistaken, the way that I do see things being kind of developed in the communities I meet with, I expect it's going to be more we're going to go after particular roles. And the reason for that, there's a clear money behind that. So it's not clear even to investors or to yourself as a manager of a company how much you're going to earn on specific generic assistant. But it's very clear. If you can manage a call center agent, it's very clear estimation how, because you know how many call agents are there in the world. You can estimate what percentage of them you would be able to replace with this, and so on and so on. So the way that it goes now is we will get probably first a specific role agents, and they're going to be kind of rolled out. And then we're going to come to the manager agents as well, right? So that is also a little bit kind of sad and funny. So if you are scared of AI replacing your work, or if you're a manager, it's going to happen just one notch later. So not everybody can, but if you are kind of in a manager level, you're going to have a year or two more than everybody else. But jokes aside, so I think like thinking about it as a job market is good. So we're going to get first particular roles. And you can think about it all the way that you're going to have a job description on like on LinkedIn or wherever you look for the job portal issues, and you're going to find out what it is. And then will come this generic layer. Now, moving to the robotics, which you said, it's an interesting thing because if you remember all the previous waves of AI, all the way down to like Terminator movies, have been that the AI was represented in some kind of embodiment, in some kind of a robot. This is how people thought about AI all the way down to a rural and like a 19th and 20th century perception of the robots. So we as a humans crave for the AI to have some physical presence. But if you think about it, the actual motorics and like moving is somewhat developed. If you look at the Boston Dynamics robots, they can move smoothly. They can do parkour, they can dance. So it's not about the physical things, but what they can do is the kind of cognitive part. So I'm afraid that we will get robots only after we get the mental ones first. And this is also why I use the job market analogy. I think we will first have an assistance for the office and mental jobs before we have, I don't know, plumbers or, builders, right? So therefore, the robotics will come and will strongly benefit from the agents because it's actually absolutely necessary for the robot to have the software so-called part of it, not the hardware part of it.
Okay, so what's your expectation in terms of years, right? Like we have, for example, Elon Musk and Tesla already promoting the Optimus robots that
being managed from background a little bit.
Details. But that's one of the promises, right? Like the same way you're buying a smartphone in a couple of years, you can just shop for a home assistant robot that you can, if you have elderly parents or parents who are just alone, you can give this robot. It's kind of like iRobot idea of future of the world, where it's quite normal to have like that kind of a machine at home. We all know how this turned out.
Yeah.
So is this something like, are you expecting this decade, like years, decades?
Okay, well, you know that there's this joke or the punchline saying, like, if you want to make the God laugh, tell him your plans. So I'm going to try. I'm not going to run away the question. I'm going to try, but it's a little bit foolish to try to predict things in AI. But the way that I see it, I do see first companies trying to scout for use cases of the most evident things like call center agents or support persons already now. It's not a standardized product yet, but they already do have a solutions. So I would assume by the end of 2025, we're going to have companies who offer this as a B2B service under the counter. So it's not like officially offered for quite a few roles. Then I would expect that in a year after, so 2026, we're going to have a first roles which are going to be offered as a, hey, you can rent this person for 10 hours. You don't have to have a permanent subscription. So going really into the model where you can hire it as a kind of a colleague way. So for the roles which will be offered as a B2B in 2025, I expect these to be offered as a short-term rent of that role in 2026. And then beyond that, we are very likely to get to the point where at the end of 2026, start of 2027, the first physical robots can kick in. So I think it's a question of, let's say, 1.5 to 2.5 years before we get there.
How about the regulation?
Yeah, and that's interesting. Like,
there's
what's stopping from creating a better Roomba, right? Because like we have Roombas around. It's a AI robot, like going around even some of them like sneaking, like making photos of your household, and like nothing, nobody's stopping them. They are not banned. You can still buy them. You can still use them. So I think that the regulation is giving a little bit of a blind eye on this, and they're kind of not really into it. And unless we get a really nasty case of like physical attacks of the robots on either animals or humans, I don't think so. Regulation will stand in a way in whatever form or shape.
I think we could talk about this idea for much longer. I would say let's stop here.
Let's leave something for future.
Let's leave something for future. We did do some predictions. We did go all the way from why AI agents are kind of a failure at the moment.
Yeah, we disappointed you a little bit.
Just a little bit, but I'm kind of still hopeful and still going to be expecting more, as you might imagine. So I would say that's all for this episode.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you on this one.
And let's get back. Let's get back. Yes, it was. And let's get back to the idea of AI agents sometime in the future. If the listeners are more interested, or if a topic that that we can look into, or something happens on the market, we can definitely come back to this topic.
Cool. Well, let's see if the audience upvotes the topic again.
Okay, let's see. Thanks for listening. You can find the Mindset podcast, that's spelled with AI, in your favorite podcast app. We're on YouTube, and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn or join our Discord channel. You can find all the links in the show notes in the description. Thanks and bye.
Yeah, it was great talking to you, David.
Likewise. Bye-bye.